Biden is told to move out of the White House and and President Trump should be moved back in.
Come on, I mean, how would any person, any reasonable person, even say that or think that? That's the problem. Is that those people say that and they do it with impunity, and then they get other people to believe it, and then what do you have? Oh, just misinformation. People believing lies. They're in that whole bubble where that's all they see and that's all they hear. Facts first, though. That is complete and utter bullshiggity. It's complete garbage. There's absolutely no way Trump could just be reinstated. It doesn't work that way. Though say it with me, disgraced, twice impeached, one term, former president seems to think that this is real. Doesn't say much though, but the New York Times' Maggie Haberman tweeting that he has told a number of people that he expects he will just get reinstated by August. That is not going to happen. Democracy in peril. There could be no greater threat to our democracy than a coup. And the fact is, we've already seen an attempted coup. We saw it. We all saw it when Trump-supporting insurrectionists ran riot at the United States Capitol on January 6th, beating police, hunting lawmakers in the hallways, and putting up a gallows outside the seat of our government. Attempted coup. We all saw it. We can never, ever forget it. But Republicans led by Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy are still trying to bury the truth of what we all saw, what we saw, and what they saw just days after voting to kill the January 6th commission.
Nobody's going to get away with anything who was involved in the incident at the Capitol on January the 6th. I think we'll know everything we need to know. We were all witnesses. We were right there when it happened. And I simply think the commission is not necessary.
So, okay, guess it wasn't Antifa or Black Lives Matter like they originally said. So, I mean, it's so much misinformation and BS that they even forget what they said. They just move on to something else. That is the worst part of Mitch McConnell's cowardice. They were all there. They're still trying to bury the truth. Still trying. If anything, the fact that they were there makes it even worse. And saying nobody's going to get away with anything, well, that's just a sick joke. They've already acquitted Trump. Already. They killed the January 6th commission. And then there is Senator Ron Johnson, who voted to block the commission's investigation. Now he says he's doing his own personal investigation.
I'm doing my own personal investigation. I'd like to completely reconstruct what happened on January 6th so we have an accurate historical record.
I mean, are these people, for real? You can't be buying this, right? Maybe you are. I don't know. I don't know, but I don't think Ron Johnson is the ideal choice to investigate what happened on January 6th. Because remember, he said, the Trump-supporting rioters who beat police to within an inch of their lives truly respect law enforcement. Remember he said that? Look how much they're respecting law enforcement. Yeah, there's a Trump flag and a Blue Lives Matter flag and an American flag that they're beating police officers with and trying to storm the Capitol. Remember when he said that they didn't scare him, but he would have been concerned if they were Antifa or Black Lives Matter?
I knew those were people that love this country, that truly respect law enforcement, would never do anything to break a law. So I wasn't concerned. Now, had the tables been turned, Joe, this could get me in trouble. Had the tables been turned and President Trump won the election, and those were tens of thousands of Black Lives Matter and Antifa protesters, I might have been a little concerned.
So, by the way, conspiracy theorists who say that it is Antifa and Black Lives Matter, Ron Johnson just admitted and told you that it's not, and that he wasn't afraid of them because they weren't. So you can stop believing that one. Remember when Ron Johnson read a conspiracy theory-laced article into the record in the Senate, claiming the insurrectionists were families with small children, elderly or overweight people, and here it is.
와,
fake
컨텐츠가
Trump
엄청
supporters.
높네.
Many of the marchers were families with small children. Many were elderly, overweight, or just plain tired or frail. Traits not typically attributed to the riot prone. Some obviously didn't fit in. Plainclothes militants, agents provocateurs, fake Trump protesters, and then disciplined uniformed column of attackers. I think these are the people that probably planned this.
Everything but what it is. Trump supporters. Let's not forget, it was 1 year ago today that the then president had peaceful, this was today, 1 year ago, peaceful protesters gassed so that he could have a photo op holding a Bible. Yeah. That is democracy in peril. And as the current legitimately elected president, Joe Biden, vows, as he vows to fight to get voting rights passed with the slimmest of margins, his former boss, the former president, Barack Obama, is talking tonight about the choices he had to make to get his priorities passed and what it would have been like if he had said exactly what he was thinking about regarding race.
As the first African-American president, there was a presumption, not incorrect, that there were times where I was biting my tongue. You know, that's why the skit that Key and Peele did with the anger translator Luther was funny, because people assumed, you know, Barack's thinking something other than what he's saying in certain circumstances. I think that a lot of times one of the ways I would measure it would be, is it more important for me to tell a basic historical truth, let's say, about racism in America right now, or is it more important for me to get a bill passed that provides a lot of people with health care that didn't have it before?
Much more from that interview with the former President Barack Obama coming up. And next, more on the future of our democracy. Let's hope it holds together as the current president speaks in Tulsa today.
Hate's never defeated. It only hides. It hides. And given a little bit of oxygen, just a little bit of oxygen by its leaders, it comes out of there from under the rock like it was happening again, as if it never went away.
That's delicious. You have to taste that.
The Omega Seamaster is the longest running product line that's still produced by Omega. The Omega Seamaster was first introduced in 1948 and was loosely based upon designs that were made for the British Royal Navy towards the end of World War II. What's interesting is most Omega Seamasters will have a seahorse adorned case back. So in the back of the case of the watch, you'll see a seahorse, and this actually pays tribute to Neptune, the Roman god of the sea. The seahorse logo was actually conceived by the engraver Jean-Pierre Peril, who also has a bit of history with the sea and also from an artistic perspective. And he was actually inspired by an image of Neptune driving a chariot pulled by seahorses, which is why the seahorses are again depicted wearing bridles and on the back of Omega's Seamaster based watches.
Business never sleeps. As the sun sets in Seoul and Shanghai, deals are signed in Dubai, and Europe is already in play. New York prepares to make its first move. I'm Julia Chasley, journalist, global market analyst, and host of CNN's First Move. Join me in the financial capital of the world for a market-moving perspective on the news influencing global politics, culture, and finance. I'll speak to newsmakers, risk trade. It's all right here. Make CNN your first move.
First Move with Julia Chatterley. Tonight on CNN.
Ginger is often used to dress up a dish or add spice to a meal, but a growing body of research shows that this root can have big benefits for overall health. Studies suggest that ginger can help calm an upset stomach, often caused by nausea related to pregnancy or chemotherapy. One easy way to get ginger into your diet is with a breakfast smoothie. Blend 1 carrot, 3 apples, and a 1-inch piece of ginger root with a squeeze of lemon, then stir and sip. Another easy way to add ginger to your diet is to puree it into a ginger pumpkin soup, or add it to your favorite meal as a sauce. Another plus, ginger can help you unwind. According to a University of Georgia study, when ginger is consumed, either raw or heated, it helps ease muscle pain after working out by as much as 25%.
All new Marketplace Asia with Christy Lustout and Selena Wang. All new Marketplace Asia tonight on CNN.
He's interviewed 5 U.S. presidents, authored 7 books, and has an independent voice that resonates.
What happened to when we were united against a common enemy?
He's raw, unique, and one of America's most important talk show hosts. Watch Smirconish, Saturday on CNN.
This is CNN. More people get their news from CNN than any other news source.
President Biden condemning moves across the country to restrict voting rights, calling it an unprecedented assault on our democracy, announcing today that Vice President Kamala Harris will lead the administration's push to protect voting rights, and acknowledging that it's going to be an uphill battle. Let's discuss now. Matthew Dowd is here. Matthew's a former chief strategist for President George W. Bush. I so love our conversation, sir. So glad you're here. I hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for joining. Good evening to you.
I did. It was great. I celebrated my birthday on Saturday, so it was awesome.
Wow, 25 again. That's all I'll say every time it's a birthday for me.
Again and again and again.
I celebrated the 25th anniversary of my 25th birthday recently, and you know that was a tough.
You're better at this than I am.
So listen, let's talk about President Biden in Tulsa today. Put a lot of emphasis on voting rights, and we're now learning that he is tapping the Vice President Harris, to lead the administration's efforts on voting restrictions, voting rights. Does this show that they are aware of the threat posed by all of these attacks on our democracy?
You know, Don, when you and I talked a couple of weeks ago, I mean, I think they're aware, but I thought they should have a step up. As I said to you, I thought they ought to put in somebody at a cabinet level position in charge of democracy. I'm really glad to see they made the vice president, who I think is perfect for this with her background in this and who she is. So I think that's a huge step forward. I think it's never been a question of whether or not they believed it was a problem. It's would they dedicate the resources and the time, especially as a president or vice president, the time necessary to focus on this. And as I said, this to me is the most important issue, and it's probably the greatest threat we've had to our democracy since Lincoln was elected in 1861. So brava to both of them.
Yeah. Listen, we also talked about the Democrats' efforts and who was better at politics. I don't know if you remember that, but I had a friend over the weekend who is a former Republican. I think he's independent now, and he said, "Don, can the Democrats just learn to throw a punch?" Is he right about that? Does he have is there any legitimacy to that statement?
Well, as you know, I've worked on both sides of the aisle for Democrats, and then I worked for George W. Bush and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and this is the thing I've learned. Republicans are really better at two things. They'll go to the mat and do just about anything to get what they want accomplished, regardless. And so if that means throw a punch, they'll throw a punch. And as I tried to tell someone the other day, 2000 was a perfect example. And Ron Klain, who's a friend who was on the opposite side of us working for Gore, they kept trying to make an argument in the midst of the Florida thing, and the Bush folks were just unrelenting. So that's one. But I think more importantly, Republicans are much better at being disciplined and concentrating on a broad issue that they think affects, especially their base, but it affects people's heart and soul. Democrats always try to make this a rational argument or something from their brain as opposed to the heart. And I think this is an issue Democrats can make from the heart, obviously. But they need to stay disciplined on it, not to talk about 17 different things, but to talk about this one thing and how this one thing affects the 17 other things that they want to protect or preserve in this. And the other thing I think Democrats need to do in this, they need to recall the history and put the weight of history where we are today. Let's not forget how many people died to give us the right to vote. Through the civil rights movement, through the women's suffrage movement, through all of the minorities, including my ancestors who came here as Irish, Germans, Italians, Jews, Chinese, Japanese. People have died and been beaten in order to give us what we take for granted, which is the right to vote. And we only honor their legacy, Don, is if we push back and do something about this. So I think Democrats need to come at this in a much more strong way, to stay disciplined on it, but 3, not forget the legacy of who allowed us to be in this position to begin with, because we dishonor them if we don't confront it.
Oh, right on. Let's talk. Speaking of, let's listen to the president, and then we'll talk about it.
I hear all the folks on TV saying, why doesn't Biden get this done? Well, because Biden only has a majority of effectively 4 votes in the House and a tie in the Senate, with 2 members of the Senate who vote more with my Republican friends.
So, but speaking of, as you said, putting the weight of history, and what he says, about the people who vote more than his Republican friends, shouldn't Democrats be putting the weight of history on those people who as Democrats tend to vote in, this is his words, the way vote with their Republican friends? He didn't name them, but presumably he was talking about Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. Is this a shot across the bow? And if so, should Democrats continue to do that? And should they be sterner? And should they remind these people of what's at stake here?
Well, absolutely. I think 1, it is a shot across the bow. 2, they should be reminded in this. And I think 3, they should be told that you might want, Joe Manchin might want infrastructure in West Virginia, or Kyrsten Sinema might want, to preserve a woman's right to choose. All of those things are important. But I would say, if I were the Democrats going to them, I'd say, you're not going to get any of that unless you protect voter rights. And you do everything possible to protect voter rights. Because if you don't protect voter rights, we lose all of this. So I would start basically going strong at them and saying, you want this? You're not going to get that. That's going to be secondary to what we want to do in this. I also think the president, who I think gave a great speech today and is making moves in the direction that I had suggested, I think he also needs to get out of the habit of talking about this legislatively. There's 3 powers the president has. 1, to try to get legislation done, which I think the president enunciated how it's difficult in the circumstances you're in. But he has the power of the executive branch, and the executive branch includes the Justice Department. And I think the Justice Department needs to be wielded in a state-by-state fashion to protect people's voter rights. And 3, he has the power of the bully pulpit, which is exceedingly powerful to not only move legislators, but move the public in more action on this. And so, yes, he's done well on the legislative side in speaking about it, but I think he needs to pull out all the stops on the executive side and then use the bully pulpit on a regular basis to talk about this and not go off into other issues, but tell the American public what this means to them on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's almost 2022, and priorities are going to start to change very quickly. Matthew Dowd, that's why we love having you here. You make us smarter, you make us think, and you speak the truth. Thank you, Matthew Dowd. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate it.
The former President Barack Obama speaking out, talking about being the first black president and the backlash or white lash that came after.
Those aspects of social progress that relate to identity, race, gender, all the stuff that is not just dollars and cents and transactional, that invariably will some energy on the other side by folks who feel threatened by change.